Good morning. Last time we discussed rational expression. We defined what are rational expressions. And can you still remember what are these rational expressions? As you can remember, these are fractions which are having algebraic expressions. An algebraic expression in a fraction form. So those rational expressions are already simplified. Those what we discussed are already simplified. How about if I'm going to give you a rational expression that is still to be simplified? How are we going to simplify rational expressions? So in order to do that, we need these skills, specifically factoring algebraic expressions. We need to remember how to factor algebraic expressions. And we have a lot of kind of factoring expressions, but we are going to focus on these three important methods of factoring, which are factoring by GCF, factoring by difference of two squares, and factoring trinomials, because these are more practical ways of factoring. Now, to recall factoring by GCF, let's consider this expression 9x squared y minus 3xy. How do you factor this by GCF? So if we say factoring by GCF, we need to know what is the common factor. If you say greatest common factor, we are talking about what is the biggest expression, or if it's a number, the biggest number that can divide these two terms. So in 9x squared y minus 3xy, we can see that the common expression there is 3xy. So that means we take out 3xy, and what's left inside, since we take out 3, so 9 divided by 3 is 3. We take out 1x, we still have 1x left. We take out y, so no more y. Minus, since we take out the whole 3xy, that means, what are we going to put? Is it 0 or 1? Okay, good. It's 1. So, why it's 1? Because if we are going to multiply this and distribute it, it will go back to the given. If we put 0, it will be minus 0, and it will be different from the given. So it has to be 1. And that means this is correct. So this is how you factor by factoring expressions by GCF. Now let's move to factoring by difference of two squares. Consider this expression 4x squared minus 9. So how do we factor expressions by difference of two squares? So we cannot always factor expressions by difference of two squares. It has to be two terms subtracted which are perfect squares. So that means these two expressions has to be perfect squares. Are these two terms perfect squares? Okay, good. These are perfect squares because 4x squared is a square of 2x and 9 is a square of 3. So that means the factored form of this expression is 2x minus 3 times 2x plus 3. So you might ask, can I interchange this? Yes, you can. So you can put 2x plus 3 first before 2x minus 3. That will be the same. So I have no more questions with this two factoring. Now let's move to factoring trinomials. How do you factor trinomials? So x squared plus x minus 6. So we can factor this by, as you can remember, we cross multiply, or we sometimes call it grid. So we have a grid here, and we factored x squared. So it can be x and x. So I think that's the only way to get the x squared, x times x, x squared. But for negative 6, there are different ways to factor negative 6. It can be negative 6 and 1, 6 and negative 1, 3 and negative 2, or negative 3 and 2. So we need to do a trial and error, or we call it by inspection. We need to find the perfect pair so that if we are going to cross multiply and add, we can get the middle. So if we are going to try the first pair, negative 6 and 1. So if you cross multiply, it will be negative 6x. X times 1 is 1x, or just x. And if you add it, negative 6 times 1x, that will be negative 5x. So as you can see, this is not the same as the middle. So that means we need to find other pairs so that this will arrive as positive 1x. So we are going to change this pair. So if we are going to change this, the pairs, we can see that it's 3 and negative 2. So if we cross multiply, it will be 3x and negative 2x. And try to add it, it will be positive 1x, or just simply x, which is the same as the middle. So that means our factored form will be x positive 3, that means x plus 3, times x negative 2, or x minus 2. So that's how we factor trinomials. Now, since we already reviewed factoring by GCF, factoring by difference of two squares, and factoring trinomials, now let's go to simplifying rational expression. How do you simplify rational expression? So let's take a look at this example. So let's have the first example. So when you simplify rational expressions, we are going to do some simple steps. So first thing to do is to factor. If there is something to factor, you have to factor. So factor the expressions, both numerator and denominator, or sometimes it's only one of these two. And then after you factor, you cancel if there's something to cancel. And then after you cancel out, so whatever is left, that will be part of the simplified form. So we write the simplified form. So we only do 3 steps when you simplify rational expressions. So let's have this first example. X squared plus 2x minus 8 over 2x plus 8. So first thing to do in our first step is to factor. Factor, as you can see in our numerator and denominator, these are both factorable. So we can use, what kind of factoring can we use in this first, in the numerator? Okay, that's correct. Factoring trinomials. And how about the denominator? Can we use factoring difference of two squares? Okay, we cannot use factoring difference of two squares because in the first place it's not subtraction, and at the same time these are not perfect squares. But we can factor this by GCF because they have common factor. So let's factor first the numerator. X squared plus 2x minus 8. So let's solve first. Let's write it in a different space as a draft. So in your case, you can write in a different paper just to factor that one and write your final answer in the next step. So x squared plus 2x minus 8. So we can have a grid and factor the first term, x squared, that can be x and x. For negative 8, there are different ways to factor negative 8. It can be negative 8, 1, positive 8, negative 1, or negative 2, or negative 4, positive 2. So there are different ways to do it. But in this case, in order for us to get the positive 2x, that means we have to choose or select the pair for negative 2. So if we are going to cross multiply this, it will be 4x and negative 2x. And add it, that will be positive 4, combine it with negative 2x, different signs, we subtract, copy the sign of the bigger number, so positive 2x, that's the same as the middle. So that means our factored form for this expression is x plus 4 times x minus 2. So the numerator is x plus 4 times x minus 2. Okay, so we have that numerator as factored form already. How about the denominator? Now let's erase first this draft and try to solve the denominator. So 2x plus 8. So as I said a while ago, we can factor it by GCF. So what can we take out to 2x plus 8? That means what is common to both terms, 2x plus 8? Okay, that's correct. Common is 2. Both are divisible by 2. So we can take out 2, that will be x, 2 times x plus 4. Now since we are done factoring, let's go to the next step, which is to cancel out. So we cancel whatever is the same in the numerator as well as in the denominator. So we have x plus 4. So we can take it out since it's totally the same. And what's left, so since we're done canceling, we go to the next step, which is we write the simplified form. So what's left is x minus 2. And since x minus 2 is not multiplied to any expression because x plus 4 is gone, we just have to remove the parentheses. So it will be x minus 2 over 2. And can we cancel out 2 and 2? No, we cannot do that because there is minus in between. If there is minus or plus in between, as long as it's not times, we cannot cancel. So the only way to do that is to factor. Like this, 8 and 8, we cannot cancel that because there is plus here and there is this minus or plus. So as long as there's plus or minus in between, we cannot cancel. Unless we factor and it's totally the same like this, we can cancel that. So this is the simplified form. Now for the second one, let's answer this together. So for the first one, it's intended for me to show it to you how to do it. And for the second one, we are going to do this together. So try to solve it on your notes. What's the factored form of this? Okay, that's correct. That's 3 times x minus 2. How about the denominator? Okay, so we can use factoring difference of 2 squares because these are 2 perfect squares, x squared and 4. This x squared is a square of x and 4 is a square of 2. So, what's the factored form? Okay, that's correct. X minus 2 times x plus 2. So we're done with the first step, factoring the expression. And now let's cancel out if there's something to cancel. So is there something to cancel? Okay, very good. It's x minus 2. So it will be 3 over x plus 2. And that is the simplified form. Now here in our third example, this is intended for you to do it on your own. And after that, we are going to discuss the answer. And you try to check it on your own also, if you have the same answer as I solved. Okay, try to solve it on your own first. Okay, I think everyone's done solving. So let's try to solve and try to check on your notes if we have the same answer. So let us factor the numerator. So as you can see, we have a difference of 2 squares, square of x and square of 3. So we have a factor x minus 3 times x plus 3. How about the denominator? So if we are going to factor this using degree, and I don't need to show that to you anymore because you already know how to do it. So it will be x minus 3 times x minus 3. Or in other words, the square of x minus 3. So we cancel. After we factor the expressions, what we're going to do next? Okay, very good. We cancel. We cancel whatever is exactly the same. It has to be exactly the same like this, x minus 3 and x minus 3. So if it's x minus 3, x plus 3, everything's the same except for the operation. Still, we cannot cancel that because they are not totally the same. So it has to be the same for the whole thing, x minus 3, x minus 3. So what's left is x plus 3, x minus 3. Now, can we cancel x and x, 3 and 3? Okay, very good. We cannot cancel that because there is plus or minus in between, so we cannot do that. So, only way to do that is to make it totally the same by factor, if it can be factored. But since this cannot be factored anymore, so this will be the final answer. How about for the last one? So the last one is intended for you to do that, and I'm going to check your answers. So try to answer this in on 1/4 sheet of paper and try to solve. Okay, so you pass your papers and let us discuss your answers. So pass it to the central and let's discuss the answer. So later I'm going to check your answers and verify if you learned something in our lesson. So x squared plus 7x plus 10. If we are going to factor that, that will be x plus 5, x plus 2. And here, it will be x plus 5, x minus 3. Or you can interchange that. It can be x minus 3, x plus 5. But we have exactly the same expression or factor x plus 5, so we can cancel that, which is actually our second step. And our third step is to write the simplified form. So whatever's left, that will be part of the simplified form. So our simplified form will be x plus 2 over x minus 3. That's how we simplify rational expressions.